Beloved, understand this. The great secret of life is not hidden in the stars, nor buried in some distant land. It is within you. It is the law of focus. That what you hold in the mind and feel as real in the heart must appear in your world. If you continually dwell upon lack, you will attract conditions that mirror lack. If you persist in focusing on abundance, you will find opportunities and circumstances aligning themselves with abundance. Life is not partial. It simply reflects what you persist in beholding. Imagination is not idle fantasy. It is the workshop of creation. The moment you picture something with conviction, clothed in the emotion of its reality, you have already set in motion the forces that must bring it to pass. Every outer event has its birth in an inner focus. Consider your mind as a garden. Your thoughts are the seeds, your feelings the water, and your attention the sunlight. If you sow weeds of doubt and fear, do not be surprised when your garden yields bitterness. But if you plant seeds of faith, joy, and victory, and keep your focus fixed upon them, you cannot escape the harvest of beauty and abundance. The subconscious accepts every impression you give it. It does not argue, it does not question, it simply brings forth. This is why focus is so vital. Each day, whether knowingly or not, you are impressing upon this fertile soil. The question is, what are you planting? Choose deliberately what you focus upon. Guard your attention as a sacred treasure. For where your focus goes, your future grows. Fix your inner gaze on the life you desire. Live in the end as though it were already so, and watch as the unseen takes shape before your eyes. For the truth is this: you are not a victim of chance, but a creator through focus. And what you focus on, you will surely attract. The law of attention is one of the most profound truths hidden in plain sight, yet overlooked by so many. Whatever holds your focus becomes the seed you plant in the unseen realm of consciousness, and every seed planted there must one day show itself in the visible world. Attention is not a casual thing. It is the most powerful force you possess. It is your creative brush, painting the canvas of your future, whether you do so knowingly or carelessly. What you give your attention to, you give your life to. For life faithfully reflects the object of your sustained focus. When you fix your attention on something, you give it vitality, even if it does not yet exist in your outer world. By dwelling upon it, imagining it, and feeling it as real, you make it alive within. And what is alive within must ultimately take form without. The unseen is not empty. It is the womb of creation, and attention is the act of conception. Each time you return to a thought, each time you imagine a scene and feel it vividly, you water that seed in the invisible soil of the subconscious. Whether you dwell on fear or faith, loss or gain, doubt or confidence, your focus is silently choosing the harvest that will one day come forth. Think of attention as a magnet. Whatever you consistently hold in your mind, you draw nearer and nearer. Even when you do not notice it, your focus shapes the subtle movements of your choices, your energy, and the circumstances that meet you. The person who constantly attends to obstacles will always find more obstacles. The one who fixes attention on possibilities will uncover paths where others see none. This is not mere positive thinking. It is the law of life, for you cannot attend to one thing persistently without it bearing fruit. The challenge then is not whether the law works, but whether you work the law wisely. If you scatter your attention between fear today and faith tomorrow, between abundance one moment and lack the next, you plant mixed seeds and wonder why your harvest is confusion. But when you hold a steady gaze, unwavering in your inner conviction, you will watch reality reshape itself to match the image you sustain. Tension is choice. In every moment, you are deciding what to magnify and what to diminish. The more you look upon something, the more real it becomes to you, and the more it commands your world. You cannot afford to give casual attention to fear, resentment, or failure, for in doing so, you lend them power to grow. Instead, turn your gaze deliberately toward the life you desire. Imagine its fulfillment. See yourself already living in the joy of it, and let your heart dwell there. In time, life will mirror your inner gaze. For what you focus on with conviction does not remain in the unseen. It emerges, clothed in the substance of your world. Life is a mirror, and the reflection it casts back to you is never arbitrary. It does not deliver according to your fleeting wishes or momentary desires, but according to what you continually focus upon, whether consciously or unconsciously. Many wonder why they desire success but face failure, why they long for love yet encounter rejection, or why they yearn for peace but live in turmoil. The answer is not hidden in luck, chance, or fate. It is in the images and emotions they persistently entertain within. For life does not give you what you want, it reflects what you continually focus upon. The mirror has no power to invent its own reflection. It simply reveals what stands before it. In the same way, life does not create apart from you. It mirrors the pattern of your dominant focus. If the inner image you hold is one of lack, unworthiness, or defeat, then no amount of surface-level wishing can alter the reflection. The outer world bends to the inner one, not the other way around. You may speak of prosperity, but if inwardly you dwell on struggle, your mirror cannot help but return that image. You may long for companionship, but if inwardly you sustain the feeling of loneliness, life's reflection will confirm that inner reality. What you focus upon becomes charged with energy. The more attention you give to a thought, the more alive it becomes within you until it shapes not only your perception, but the very events that unfold. Focus acts as a magnet, drawing like conditions, people, and experiences into your sphere. If you continually expect disappointment, you unconsciously prepare for it, move in ways that invite it, and notice only the circumstances that confirm it. If you continually focus on victory, you align with opportunities, adopt the posture of confidence, and attract outcomes that echo your inner stance. This is why fleeting desires so often fail. A person may say, "I want abundance," but their true focus is on debt, bills, and insufficiency. The mirror cannot reflect the want, it can only reflect the focus. Another may cry for healing but dwell upon sickness, rehearsing symptoms and imagining decline. The mirror is not unkind, it is faithful. It simply reflects the image before it. The great secret is that you hold the power to choose what stands before your mirror. If you would see a reflection of love, abundance, or peace, you must first make those the objects of your sustained attention. This means more than occasional daydreams. It requires dwelling upon them until they feel natural, until they become the background of your inner world. The outer reflection cannot resist a firmly held inner image. Life is not mocking you when it reflects struggle. It is showing you the focus that has been ruling you. change the inner gaze, and the reflection must follow. Just as surely as a mirror reflects the face before it, life reflects the focus within you. The choice is always yours. Imagination is not a child's plaything, nor an idle escape from reality. It is the very womb of creation. Every invention, every work of art, every structure of society began first as an image in the unseen. Your imagination is the workshop of the universe within you, and the pictures you hold there, when repeated with feeling, must clothe themselves in the physical world. To imagine is not to pretend, it is to create. For the world you see without is but the shadow of the world you build within. When you imagine something with intensity, you breathe life into it. The picture becomes charged with the emotion you pour into it. Thought alone may fade like smoke, but when clothed in feeling, it becomes substance. This is why daydreams pass away, but visions held with conviction endure until they manifest. The moment you feel the reality of your inner picture, you have already planted the seed of its appearance in the visible realm. Look at the great inventors and dreamers of history. Before a bridge was built, it was first constructed in the architect's imagination. Before a poem was written, it was heard inwardly in the silence of the poet's mind. Before a business was founded, it was lived and felt by its founder in the inner theater of vision. What they imagined persistently became the world's reality. For imagination is not bound by the limits of the senses. It is the power that gives birth to what the senses later confirm. Every time you rehearse an inner scene, you are shaping your tomorrow. If you imagine defeat and feel its sting, you are rehearsing it into being. If you imagine success and feel its joy, you are calling it forth into manifestation. Imagination does not distinguish between what is seen and what is unseen. It simply creates according to the impressions you feed it. This is why those who dwell on fear continually encounter reasons to be afraid, and those who dwell on hope continually find doors of opportunity opening before them. Consider your inner pictures as garments awaiting embodiment. You may imagine yourself strong, prosperous, and loved. And if you persist in this picture with the feeling that it is already yours, life must clothe you in the very reality you have seen within. The outer world is but the mirror of the inner one, and imagination is the hand that paints the reflection. The danger is not in imagination failing to create, but in imagining carelessly. Too many clothe themselves in garments of worry and despair, rehearsing scenes of loss and betrayal, and then wonder why such things appear. Yet the law is impartial. What you imagine with feeling, you invite into form. Let your imagination become sacred. See only that which you wish to experience. Picture it clearly, feel it deeply, and return to it often. In time, you will discover that your imagination is not a dream, but a prophecy. For your inner pictures, repeated with feeling, must clothe themselves in the physical world. Thought by itself is like a seed lying dormant on the surface of the soil. It has potential, but until it is pressed into the ground and watered, it remains lifeless. What presses thought into the fertile ground of creation is feeling. Feeling is the energy, the magnetism, the living force that gives thought its power to attract and to manifest. You may think 1,000 thoughts in a day, but only those wrapped in genuine emotion will imprint themselves upon the unseen and call forth their reflection in your outer life. Thought alone is not enough. It is the emotion behind it that magnetizes reality. Consider the times you have worried. A single fearful thought, when felt deeply, has the power to disturb your whole body, alter your breathing, and even disrupt your sleep. That is the strength of feeling. It makes thought alive. The same is true of joyful expectation. When you picture something desirable and allow yourself to feel the happiness of already possessing it, your body responds, your heart lifts, and your actions begin to align with the vision. In both cases, it is not the bare thought, but the felt reality that takes hold and begins to shape experience. Feeling is the language of the subconscious mind. The subconscious does not respond to empty words or detached reasoning. It responds to impressions charged with emotion. You can tell yourself, I am wealthy 1,000 times, but if inwardly you feel lack, the feeling will always outweigh the mere statement. On the other hand, if you close your eyes and dwell in the feeling of abundance as though it were already your state, the subconscious accepts it as truth and works tirelessly to bring it forth. This is why affirmations often fail for those who repeat them mechanically. Words alone cannot plant the seed. It is the emotional atmosphere that surrounds the words which makes them fertile. When you feel the reality of what you affirm, the words become spirit and life. Without feeling, they are but sound and breath. With feeling, they are creation itself. It is also important to understand that the universe is impartial. It does not judge whether your feeling is of joy or sorrow, love or fear. It only knows to bring forth in kind. If you dwell habitually in the feeling of anxiety, life will mirror it. If you abide in the feeling of peace, peace will become your atmosphere. You cannot escape the harvest of your emotional state, for feeling is the magnet that draws like conditions to itself. Thus, the greatest work you can do is not merely to control your thoughts, but to direct your feelings. Train yourself to feel what you wish to experience. Let the joy of your desired outcome fill you now. Rest in the satisfaction of its fulfillment before it has appeared. In this way, you set the magnet of your being to draw in harmony with your desire. For it is not thought alone that creates. It is thought clothed in feeling that commands reality to take form. The subconscious is the silent ground of your being, a vast and fertile soil in which every idea you impress upon it takes root and grows. It does not argue with you. It does not question your authority. It does not distinguish between what is true or false, good or bad, desirable or undesirable. It simply receives the seed of thought and feeling you plant within it and, without fail, brings forth a harvest in your outer world. Whatever idea you impress upon it through focus and belief, it accepts and brings forth. Most people do not realize how obedient the subconscious is. It is like rich soil in a garden. It will grow weeds just as readily as it will grow flowers, depending on what you sow. If you continually impress it with fear, doubt, or limitation, those seeds will sprout as unwanted conditions in your life. If you impress it with faith, abundance, and victory, the same soil will just as faithfully bring forth those conditions. The soil makes no judgment. It yields according to the seed. Your conscious mind is the sower, the one with the power to choose what to plant. Every thought repeated with focus, every vision held with conviction, every emotion deeply felt is a seed pressed into the subconscious. Once planted, the subconscious sets to work in silence, arranging circumstances, guiding impulses, and shaping events to match the impression it has received. You may forget the seed you planted, but the soil does not forget. It continues to nurture it until the time of harvest. This is why so many live in cycles they cannot seem to escape. They pray for freedom but continually impress their subconscious with images of bondage. They desire prosperity but rehearse feelings of lack. They long for love but dwell upon rejection. The subconscious, being fertile soil, accepts the stronger impression and life reflects it. It is not cruelty but law. The subconscious always says yes to the seed it has been given, whether that seed is planted deliberately or by careless habit. The great secret is that you have the power to choose what impressions you allow to take root. You can deliberately impress your subconscious with the images and feelings of your desired state, returning to them until they sink deep into the soil of belief. Once accepted, the subconscious cannot help but bring them forth, for it works with perfect fidelity to the impressions it has received. Think of the farmer who plants a seed of wheat. He does not dig it up each morning to see if it is growing. He trusts the soil. In the same way, when you impress your subconscious with the feeling of your fulfilled desire, you need not strain or force its manifestation. You can rest in quiet confidence, knowing the soil is at work beneath the surface. In due season, the invisible will break forth into the visible. Guard the seeds you plant, for the soil of the subconscious is always fertile. It does not rest, it does not fail, it only produces after its kind. Plant deliberately, water with feeling, and trust the soil to bring forth in abundance. For what you impress upon it, it accepts, and what it accepts, it must manifest. You cannot escape the law of attraction, for it operates ceaselessly whether you are aware of it or not. Every moment of your life you are attracting, drawing experiences, people, and circumstances into your orbit. The true question is not whether you attract, but whether you do so by design or by default. If you do not choose your focus deliberately, your attention will be scattered among worries, fears, and the impressions of the outer world, and these will silently dictate the course of your life. But if you take hold of your focus and direct it toward what you desire, you become the master of your destiny rather than the victim of chance. Your focus is the steering wheel of your life. Wherever it points, your energy flows, and whatever you energize must eventually take form. To focus by default is to let circumstances dictate your gaze. It is to allow the noise of the world, the opinions of others, and the residue of yesterday's experiences to decide what images you carry within. In this state, you react rather than create, and life seems to toss you about like a ship without a rudder. You may long for freedom, yet your focus on limitation binds you. You may wish for joy, yet your focus on disappointment keeps you in sorrow. To focus by design, however, is to choose deliberately the images and feelings you allow to dominate your inner world. It is to say, though appearances may suggest otherwise, I will direct my gaze to the reality I desire. It is the practice of lifting your attention from lack to abundance, from fear to faith, from chaos to peace, until your inner atmosphere becomes the dominant force of your life. In this way, you set the law of attraction to work in your favor, for the outer world must conform to the image consistently held within. This choice of focus is the difference between living as a creator or as a victim. The victim believes that life happens to them, that circumstances arrive by chance. The creator knows that life mirrors their focus and therefore takes responsibility for what they hold in mind. Even in the midst of difficulty, the creator does not surrender their focus to despair, but continues to dwell upon the desired outcome with feeling and conviction. In time, the unseen responds, and circumstances shift to reflect the chosen image. Do not underestimate the power of a sustained focus. A momentary wish, quickly abandoned, bears little fruit. But a focus held steadily, repeated with feeling, becomes a force no outer obstacle can resist. Just as a stream carves its way through rock by persistence, so your chosen focus carves the path for your destiny. You are always attracting. Each day, each hour, your focus is planting seeds in the soil of life. Ask yourself, am I attracting by default, surrendering my power to the drift of circumstance? Or am I attracting by design, shaping my world with deliberate attention? The law makes no exceptions. It will reflect back what you hold within. Choose wisely, for where your focus goes, your life must surely follow. And so we see that life is not a mystery mocking us, but a faithful servant reflecting us. What you focus on becomes the seed you plant. What you feel gives it power. What you imagine clothes it with form. And what you impress upon the subconscious must emerge as your world. You are never without power, for the choice of focus is always in your hands. The mirror of life does not decide for you, it only reflects you. Therefore choose deliberately, imagine boldly, feel deeply, and fix your gaze upon the life you truly desire. In doing so, you will discover that what once seemed impossible becomes inevitable, for the unseen will always bow to the vision sustained within. Thank you for lending me your attention, for it is the most precious gift you possess. May you leave with the resolve to guard it well, to focus with intention, and to create your world by design. There comes a moment just before the dawn when the night feels its darkest. It is the very same in your life. When everything around you seems to contradict your vision, when the outer world insists you have failed, that is the signal you are closer than ever. The pressure you feel is not the sign of defeat, but the labor pains of your dream being born. Everything you desire is already finished within you. The vision you hold, the scene you play in the quiet of your mind, is not imagination in the weak sense of fantasy. It is reality clothed in its first form. What you dare to accept inwardly will harden into fact outwardly. The invisible becomes visible, but only to the one who persists. So I tell you, do not stop when the evidence of the senses shouts against you. The world of appearances is nothing more than a shadow. It bends to the persistence of your inner stance. Keep going. Stand firm in the assumption of your fulfilled desire. The world will conform. It has no choice. Delay is never denial. If it seems long, it is only the process of unseen arrangements. The outer picture is catching up to the inner decree. Trust it. To abandon your vision now would be like walking away from a harvest when the fruit has ripened but not yet been placed in your hands. Keep resting in the end. Feel now the joy of completion. Let your heart taste the satisfaction of already having. For when you live as though it is done, you summon the power that brings it to pass. The world reflects not your words, but your state. Remain faithful to the state of the wish fulfilled, and all else will bow before it. Remember this, faith is nothing more than loyalty to your unseen vision. To believe in the facts of the senses is easy. Anyone can do that. But to remain unmoved in the unseen to hold to your inner reality, though all else denies it. That is power. And that power guarantees manifestation. So I say to you now, keep going. You are so close. Do not measure by appearances. Measure by your inner knowing. The seed you planted is alive, and it is growing. Soon the harvest will break forth into your world, and you will see with your eyes what you already embraced within. Stand firm, for the victory is already yours. Imagination is the seed of reality, for everything you have ever experienced in the outer world first began as an unseen thought, a quiet picture within the mind, a fleeting desire that took root in consciousness. Nothing exists in your world that was not first imagined. The clothes you wear, the home you live in, the devices you hold in your hands, all of them were once invisible ideas resting in the imagination of someone who dared to believe in their unseen vision. What you see within is already forming without, because imagination is not a fantasy, it is creation's first stage, the womb in which your reality gestates. When you close your eyes and dare to feel the reality of what you desire, you are planting a seed in the fertile ground of consciousness. That seed may not appear instantly in your physical environment, but the process begins the very moment you accept it as real. Just as a farmer trusts that the seed beneath the soil is growing even when he cannot see it, so too must you trust that your imaginal act is alive and unfolding. The outer world is simply the harvest of inner seeds planted long ago, and what you persist in imagining will inevitably bloom into fact. Imagination carries a creative law that cannot fail. It moves with precision and order, arranging people, circumstances, and events to reflect the image you hold within. Often you may not perceive the subtle shifts at first, for they happen in silence, behind the veil of appearances. Yet the invisible roots are spreading, the unseen connections are forming, until suddenly what you once entertained only in thought becomes undeniable in your world. This is why your inner vision is more important than your outer circumstances, for circumstances are only effects, while imagination is the cause. The power lies not in waiting for reality to change before you believe, but in believing so completely that reality is compelled to obey. The world has no choice but to yield to the sustained direction of your inner life. If you persist in imagining yourself successful, loved, or free, the world must eventually mirror that vision. If you continue to entertain fear, doubt, or lack, the world faithfully reflects those as well. It is impartial, like soil receiving a seed. The harvest depends entirely on what is planted. Therefore, guard your imagination with reverence. Do not dismiss your inner pictures as idle daydreams, for they are the blueprint of tomorrow's experiences. Train yourself to return again and again to the vision of your fulfilled desire. Enter the scene, live within it, and feel the reality of it as though it were already yours. By doing so, you are not merely hoping, you are creating. The unseen is the real, and the seen is but its shadow. Every great achievement, every shift of destiny, every transformation of life begins in the quiet sanctuary of imagination. What you see within is already forming without, and if you remain faithful to it, the day will come when you will stand in the midst of the very thing you once held only in the secret place of your mind. The moment of greatest resistance is not a sign of failure, but a divine signal that your manifestation is closer than you realize. Just as the darkest part of the night appears just before the dawn, so too does the heaviest resistance often rise just before your vision breaks through into the world of facts. This resistance may appear as doubt, fear, frustration, or even external obstacles that seem impossible to overcome. Yet these are not barriers meant to stop you. They are simply the final contractions before birth, the last attempt of the old state to hold on before it dissolves and gives way to the new. When you hold a vision within yourself, you are calling into being a new reality, a new state of existence. The old state, which has been dominant for so long, does not easily vanish without effort. It will fight for its survival, showing you the loudest and most convincing appearances to persuade you to abandon your new assumption. This is why resistance feels so real and so powerful. But it is precisely because the new state is already forming that the old is forced to rear its head one last time. If you recognize this moment for what it truly is, you will not retreat. Instead, you will stand firm in the assurance that what you seek is already yours. Think of a seed sprouting beneath the soil. For days, nothing is seen, only silence and stillness. But just before the breakthrough, the pressure is at its highest. The soil resists, the surface seems unyielding, and yet the sprout pushes through and finds the light. The resistance of the soil was never the end, but rather the final step in the process of emergence. In the same way, the resistance you feel in life is evidence that the unseen reality you have nurtured in imagination is pressing against the surface of your world, ready to reveal itself. This is why it is so important to persist in your vision, regardless of appearances. If you yield in the moment of greatest resistance, you are like the farmer who abandons his crop the day before harvest. You must trust the law, knowing that the outer world cannot resist the sustained inner state. It may appear stubborn, but appearances are only echoes, and echoes always fade when the sound ceases. The resistance is only the echo of the old belief, soon to be replaced by the living reality of your new assumption. So when you feel the strongest doubt, when the facts scream louder than ever, remind yourself, this is the sign that manifestation is near. Do not look for confirmation outside, rest in the conviction inside. Stand firm in your assumption, and the resistance will collapse, revealing the very fulfillment you have long held within. The moment of greatest resistance is not your enemy, it is your proof. It means you are on the threshold of receiving what you have already claimed in the unseen. Your inner state is the true cause of everything you experience, for the outer world is nothing more than a mirror reflecting what you have accepted within yourself. It may appear as though circumstances, people, or chance events shape your life, but in truth, they are only effects. The cause lies deeper in the invisible realm of consciousness. Every thought you dwell upon, every emotion you persistently feel, every assumption you refuse to let go of, they shape the state in which you live, and that state generates the conditions of your world. To attempt to change the outer without first altering the inner is like trying to rearrange the reflection in a mirror without touching the face it reflects. True transformation begins within. When you understand this principle, you stop blaming circumstances and begin taking responsibility for your inner life. The world cannot show you anything you have not first impressed upon yourself. If you live in the state of fear, lack, or failure, you will encounter evidence that seems to confirm those states. If you live in the state of abundance, love, and fulfillment, Your world will bend itself to express those realities. This is why persistence is so vital. The outer world often lags behind the inner shift, continuing for a time to echo the old state, even after you have assumed a new one. If you abandon your inner conviction too soon, you simply fall back into the old state, and the reflection continues unchanged. But when you persist, when you hold to the new state regardless of appearances, you give it the strength to harden into fact. The world has no choice but to yield to the inner cause, though it may take time for all the invisible threads to align. Imagine living in the inner state of already being what you desire. Feel the satisfaction, the relief, the joy of fulfillment now. In imagination, if you remain faithful to that state, the outer world will eventually conform, for it is compelled to follow the pattern within. Do not be deceived by temporary appearances. They are only shadows, echoes of the old assumptions that once governed you. Shadows may linger for a while, but they have no power of their own. The living power is your present state of being, and this state is entirely in your control. Choose it deliberately, return to it often. Live in it until it feels natural, until it is no longer an effort, but your dwelling place. At that point, the outer reflection must shift, for the mirror can only display what you are. So I urge you, persist in the inner vision. Do not waver. Do not seek validation from the outer world before you believe. Believe first within, and the facts will follow. Your inner state is the cause, and the world will conform in time. Stand firm, knowing that what you claim innerly is already real, and that soon, inevitably, it will appear without as the undeniable proof of your inner faithfulness. Delay is not denial, for what you have imagined and accepted within yourself is already yours. The time that seems to pass between your inner acceptance and its outward appearance is not a void, nor is it rejection. It is the sacred process of unseen alignment. Life is weaving together the threads of circumstance, people, and events in ways you cannot yet see. Just as a seed planted in the soil requires its season of growth before the fruit appears, so too does your desire unfold in its perfect time. To mistake delay for denial is to uproot the seed before it has a chance to bloom. When you understand this law, you cease to be impatient with appearances. You realize that every moment after your imaginal act is part of the unfolding. The outer world must reshape itself to mirror the new state you have assumed within, and that reshaping often involves movements you cannot detect. Someone may be moved to make a decision. A door may need to open. A connection may have to form. These alignments are happening in the unseen, orchestrated by the power that responds faithfully to your inner stance. Delay, therefore, is not the absence of manifestation, but the very proof that it is on its way. Consider the farmer who plants his crop. He does not stare at the soil demanding instant fruit. He trusts the invisible process at work beneath the ground. He waters, he waits, he continues in faith, knowing that the unseen roots are developing long before the harvest is visible. If he were to dig up the seed each day to check its progress, he would sabotage the very process he depends on. In the same way, you must trust your imaginal seed. It is alive, it is growing, and the delay is only the orderly unfolding of its expression. And impatience and doubt are temptations that arise when the senses show no evidence. The mind whispers, "It isn't working," or "maybe it's not meant for me." But these are only shadows of the old belief trying to regain ground. If you surrender to them, you step out of the state of fulfillment and back into the state of lack. The outer world then reflects that shift and the process stalls. But if you remain faithful, unmoved by appearances, the manifestation must come. The law does not fail. Delay is a teacher, inviting you to deepen your trust, to anchor yourself more firmly in the unseen reality than in the shifting facts of the visible. It reminds you that life is not chaotic but ordered. It is aligning in ways beyond your immediate comprehension, and your only task is to persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, to rest in the end, knowing that what you have imagined is already accomplished, is to allow the process to complete itself without interference. So when delay arises, welcome it as part of the unfolding. See it not as punishment, but as preparation. The unseen is moving, and the outer must catch up. Denial does not exist in this law, only delay. And even that delay is nothing more than divine alignment in progress. Hold fast, for what you have claimed within is certain to reveal itself without. And when it does, you will see that the timing was perfect all along. To rest in the end is to step beyond striving and enter the stillness of already being. It is to seize the struggle of trying to make something happen and instead live from the assurance that it has already been accomplished within you. When you rest in the end, you no longer plead, beg, or wait anxiously. You dwell in the inner satisfaction of fulfillment. You let the feeling of completion wrap around you until it becomes your natural state. In that stillness, the power of creation is released, and the outer world is compelled to mirror your inner rest. The world is shaped not by effort, but by assumption. Striving implies that your desire is separate from you, distant and difficult. But when you assume the end, when you let yourself feel the joy, the relief, the gratitude of already having, you collapse the distance between desire and fulfillment. You become the one who already possesses what you once longed for. From that state, the law works effortlessly because it only reflects the reality you embody. To rest in the end is not laziness. It is the highest form of trust. It is the refusal to live in lack and the courage to claim completion now. Think of how a child falls asleep after a long day of excitement. They do not question whether tomorrow will arrive. They simply surrender, knowing the sun will rise. In the same way, when you rest in the end, you surrender all worry and doubt, knowing that the unseen reality is already secured. You allow yourself to be carried by the feeling of it is done. That rest is not passive. It is the seedbed of manifestation. For the world always conforms to the state in which you live, and the state of fulfilled desire calls forth its own evidence. The restless mind seeks proof before it can believe. It waits for outer confirmation to feel inner relief. But to dwell in the end is to reverse this order. You give yourself the relief first, and the proof follows. You let yourself feel the embrace of love before the partner arrives, the freedom of abundance before the money appears, the thrill of success before the achievement is visible. By doing so, you generate the cause, and the effect must come. The facts of life bend to the power of your inner conviction. Resting in the end is also freedom from time. You no longer ask, when will it come? For you have already received it within. In imagination, you are there. And if you are there in imagination, the world will in time deliver the corresponding scene. This is why rest is so powerful. It removes the desperation of waiting and replaces it with the quiet certainty of knowing. So dwell in the end as though you have already arrived. Let your heart celebrate the completion now. Walk as the one who already has, speak as the one who already is, and think as the one who already knows. This is not pretense, it is truth. For what you claim inwardly is the only reality, and when you rest in it faithfully, the outer world must eventually rise to meet it. The journey is over when you rest in the end, for you are no longer seeking, you are being, and being is the key to all creation. Faith is loyalty to the unseen vision, not to the visible facts. To live by faith is to give your allegiance to the inner picture, the imaginal act, the reality you have claimed within yourself, even when everything in the outer world denies it. Facts are temporary. They are the shadows cast by yesterday's beliefs and assumptions. Vision is eternal, for it springs from the creative core of consciousness. When you choose to remain loyal to the unseen, you are affirming that your inner world is the true cause and the outer world is only its reflection. Faith does not demand evidence, it creates it. Most people live in bondage to the visible. They allow their moods, decisions, and hopes to rise and fall with appearances. If circumstances look favorable, they feel confident. If circumstances look bleak, they despair. But faith is the refusal to bow to appearances. It is the unwavering commitment to what cannot yet be seen by the senses, but which is known within. Faith says, "Though I see lack, I know abundance is mine. Though I see loneliness, I know love surrounds me. Though I see obstacles, I know the way is already made." Faith anchors you in the unseen reality until the facts of life rearrange themselves to mirror it. This loyalty is not always easy, for the visible world will often shout louder than your quiet inner vision. You may be tempted to abandon what you have imagined, because the evidence has not yet appeared. But to abandon the unseen is to cut yourself off from the very cause of transformation. The seed cannot bloom if you stop watering it. Faith is the steady hand that continues to water, continues to believe, continues to nurture the invisible until it appears in form. Think of an architect with a blueprint. Before the building exists, there is only paper and ink. To an untrained eye, it seems like nothing more than lines and sketches. But the architect is loyal to the blueprint. They know that in time, brick and stone will conform to the design. Your imagination is the blueprint, and faith is your loyalty to it. If you waver, the structure falters. If you persist, the structure rises exactly as drawn. Faith is not wishful thinking. It is not hoping that something might happen. It is the conviction that it is already accomplished in the unseen, and therefore it must, in time, show itself in the seen. It does not negotiate with facts or conditions. It stands unmoved until the facts bow to the vision. Faith is creative loyalty, the choice to align yourself again and again with the inner reality, no matter what the senses report. So remain steadfast. Choose to believe the unseen more than you believe the visible. Let the inner vision be your guide, your anchor, your truth. The facts will change, the appearances will dissolve, but your loyalty to the unseen will carry you through every resistance. For what you dare to believe and remain faithful to in imagination must become flesh in your world. That is the law, and faith is its key. Every word spoken has been a reminder that your destiny is not shaped by chance, but by the vision you dare to hold within yourself. Imagination plants the seed, persistence nourishes it, faith protects it, and rest allows it to bloom. Resistance, delay, and appearances may rise against you, but they are powerless before your inner certainty. The truth is simple yet profound. Your inner state is the cause, and the outer world must bow to it. Hold fast, keep going, for you are closer than you think. The life you long for is already yours in the unseen, and if you remain faithful, it will appear in your world with perfect certainty. Thank you for giving your time and heart to this message. May you walk away not just inspired, but transformed, resting in the assurance that what you have claimed within is already accomplished. Stay faithful, stay steadfast, and above all, keep going. You already won. Not tomorrow, not someday. The victory is already yours. And now, you are simply approaching the moment when you will see it. Most people stop too soon, not because they failed, but because they doubted during the quiet interval between decision and appearance. Yet this pause is not emptiness. It is preparation. It is the space where what is unseen gathers form. The moment you accepted your desire as fulfilled within, the outcome was sealed. Life does not debate that decision, it follows it. Every circumstance, every encounter, every shift you notice or don't notice is quietly aligning itself with the state you have already occupied. You may wonder why nothing seems different yet, but understand this. Change always happens inward first. The outer world is the last to receive the message. When the mirror hasn't changed, it doesn't mean your face hasn't. It only means the reflection is catching up. This is why you must keep going, not with strain, not with force, but with calm certainty. Persistence is not repetition of words, it is loyalty to a feeling. It is remaining faithful to the knowing that this is done even when the senses offer no evidence. Especially then, do not argue with appearances. They are outdated information. What you are seeing now was shaped by former assumptions, not your present decision. Your present state is already creating something new, and it cannot fail to express itself. You are not hoping anymore. You are not wishing anymore. You are remembering. Remember who you are when you feel at peace about your desire. Remember the quiet confidence that comes when you no longer chase, but allow. That feeling is the sign. That feeling is the proof. The world must follow what you consistently assume to be true. It has no choice. So keep going, not because you're trying to win, but because you already have. And very soon, what you know inwardly will stand before you outwardly, undeniable, solid, and real. You already won, now you'll see it. The victory is already decided, not in some distant future, not in a world outside of you, but within the quiet depth of your own awareness. What you seek was settled the moment you accepted it as real inside yourself. Long before circumstances move, before evidence appears, before anyone else can see a change, the decision is made inwardly. Life does not begin with outer action. It begins with inner agreement. When you consent internally to an outcome, you initiate a process that cannot be reversed, because the source has already spoken. Most people misunderstand victory because they wait for signs. They believe success arrives only when the senses confirm it. But the deeper truth is that the senses are followers, not leaders. They echo decisions that were already finalized within. The moment you stop asking whether it will happen and begin knowing that it has happened, the struggle ends. That knowing is not loud or dramatic. It is calm, settled, and certain. It feels natural, almost ordinary. And that is how you know it is real. What you seek does not require effort to be created, only acceptance to be expressed. The inner decision carries more power than any external action because it speaks the language life understands. Once you have claimed something inwardly, the world reorganizes itself around that claim. People change, opportunities appear, and events align in ways you could never plan logically. This is not coincidence. It is the natural response of reality to an inner conclusion already reached. You may still experience moments of doubt, not because the victory is uncertain, but because the mind is adjusting to a new state. Old habits of thinking may question what has already been settled. This does not undo the decision unless you fully withdraw your inner consent. A passing thought cannot cancel a deep acceptance. The seed has already been planted, and even when the ground looks unchanged, growth is taking place below the surface. The delay you perceive is not resistance, it is incubation. Everything moves according to its own rhythm, and the unseen always precedes the seen. When you remain inwardly aligned with the outcome, you allow the process to unfold without interference. Forcing, worrying, or constantly checking only pulls attention back to the old state. Peace, on the other hand, keeps you anchored in the truth that it is already done. To understand this is to rest. You no longer chase, persuade, or prove. You simply live from the assumption that what you desire is yours. From that place, action becomes effortless and timing becomes precise. The victory does not arrive suddenly, it reveals itself naturally, as something that was always meant to be. And when it does, you will recognize it not as a miracle, but as a confirmation of what you already knew within. Persistence is not about force, repetition, or struggle. It is about remaining loyal to an inner knowing, regardless of what the outer world appears to say. Continuance in this quiet certainty is what allows reality to reveal itself. The outer world is fluid and responsive, but it moves according to inner direction. When you persist inwardly, you are not trying to make something happen. You are allowing what is already set in motion to complete its journey into form. Inner knowing is subtle. It is not the excitement of hope or the urgency of desire. It is the calm awareness that something is settled. Persistence means you return to that awareness again and again, especially when appearances suggest otherwise. The world may look unchanged, situations may seem delayed, and results may appear distant, but these are not indicators of failure. They are simply the echo of previous states, still playing out. Persistence keeps you anchored in the present assumption, rather than reacting to outdated reflections. Most people abandon their inner position too quickly. They hold the knowing for a moment, then surrender it to doubt when they see no immediate confirmation. Yet reality cannot instantly rearrange itself. It must move through people, circumstances, and timing that are beyond conscious planning. Persistence allows these unseen adjustments to occur without interruption. Every time you return to the inner conviction, you reinforce the direction life is already taking. This continuance is not stressful. True persistence feels more like relaxation than effort. It is choosing again and again not to contradict yourself internally. You stop asking, is it working, because that question belongs to uncertainty. Instead, you live as someone who already knows. This knowing shapes your reactions, your expectations, and even your silence. You begin to respond to life from a different level, and life responds in kind. Outer proof does not come as a reward for effort, it comes as a reflection of consistency. The world mirrors what you sustain inwardly, not what you occasionally affirm. When your inner state remains steady, reality has no option but to conform. It must express what is most consistently assumed. This is why persistence is more powerful than intensity. A calm, unwavering assumption carries more creative force than emotional highs followed by doubt. As you persist, something shifts within you before anything shifts around you. The need for reassurance fades. You feel less urgency and more peace. This inner stability is the sign that alignment is complete. From that place, outer proof arrives naturally, often unexpectedly, because the work was already done within. When the manifestation appears, it feels familiar, almost inevitable. You recognize it as the outer echo of an inner truth you refuse to abandon. Persistence did not create it, persistence revealed it. Seeing does not lead belief, belief leads seeing. This is one of the most misunderstood truths of creation. Most people wait for visible confirmation before allowing themselves to feel certain, safe, or fulfilled. They tell themselves they will believe once the evidence appears, yet the outer world can only display what has already been accepted inwardly. To reverse this order is to remain stuck, because appearances are not causes, they are results. Being comes first. What you consistently assume yourself to be, to have, or to experience forms the foundation from which all seeing emerges. When you change your state of being, you change the lens through which life is perceived, and that new perception eventually solidifies into physical experience. Belief is not pretending or imagining without conviction. It is an inner decision about what is true now, regardless of what the senses report. When you believe first, you step into a new identity. You no longer relate to life as someone hoping for change, but as someone expecting alignment. This shift may feel subtle, but it is profound. Your reactions soften, your choices adjust naturally, and your attention moves toward possibilities instead of limitations. You are not forcing positivity, you are embodying a state. From that state, seeing becomes inevitable. Waiting to see before believing keeps you bound to old conditions. It hands authority to circumstances and allows the past to dictate the future. Believing before seeing, on the other hand, breaks this cycle. It places creative power back within you. You stop being a reactor to life and become a silent director. The world, in response, begins to rearrange itself to match the inner position you occupy. This does not mean ignoring reality or denying challenges. It means understanding their temporary nature. What you see now reflects former beliefs, not current ones. When you believe in advance, you are planting a new cause. The delay between belief and sight is not failure, it is transition. During this time, the inner state must remain intact so it can fully express itself outwardly. Being is not something you do occasionally, it is something you live from. You move through your day with an inner sense of completion rather than anticipation. You feel aligned instead of anxious. This inner consistency is what brings clarity to the outer world. Gradually, what once felt like imagination begins to feel natural, and what felt natural begins to appear. When seeing finally follows being, it feels almost secondary. The outer confirmation is satisfying but not surprising. You recognize it as the visible version of a truth you already accepted. This is why belief must come first. The world does not convince you, it confirms you. And once you understand this order, you no longer wait for permission to believe. You decide, and then you see. Everything you experience is shaped not by chance, not by effort alone, but by what you consistently accept as true within yourself. Inner assumption is the quiet agreement you hold about who you are, what is possible for you, and how life responds to you. This agreement operates whether you are aware of it or not. Life does not question your assumptions, it simply reflects them. The world rearranges itself not in response to your wishes, but in response to your accepted inner truth. An assumption is more powerful than a desire because it does not ask, it declares. Desire says, I want, while assumption says, this is. When something is assumed, the mind stops searching for evidence and begins expecting alignment. That expectation influences perception, behavior, and opportunity in subtle but precise ways. You notice different things, you respond differently, and people respond differently to you. These shifts may appear ordinary, but together they form the pathway through which reality reorganizes itself. Most people try to change their world by struggling with conditions, unaware that conditions are effects, not causes. When you fight appearances, you reinforce them. When you accept a new inner position, appearances gradually lose authority. Life begins to echo your inner stance. Doors open without force, resistance dissolves without argument, and situations resolve themselves without struggle. This is not because the world suddenly becomes generous, but because it is aligning with the assumption you now hold. Inner assumption works through consistency. What you accept occasionally has little impact. What you accept habitually becomes law. This is why fleeting affirmations or emotional highs rarely produce lasting change. It is the steady, calm acceptance that reshapes experience. When your inner dialogue, expectations, and emotional tone align with a chosen truth, life must conform. It cannot do otherwise. The world may seem unchanged. This is not a contradiction, it is a delay. Existing conditions were formed by earlier assumptions and must play out. But as you remain faithful to the new inner truth, the old structures weaken. New patterns begin to form. Encounters feel timed, opportunities feel natural, and outcomes feel inevitable. The rearrangement happens quietly, often unnoticed until the result is complete. You do not need to control how this happens. Life handles the details. Your only responsibility is to remain inwardly aligned with what you have accepted as true. When doubt arises, it is not a command to retreat, but an invitation to reaffirm. Each return to the assumption strengthens its hold. The outer world reflects back what you have long known inwardly. When this happens, it feels less like success and more like recognition. You are not surprised, you are validated. Life has rearranged itself not to reward you, but to mirror you. And once you understand this, you realize that changing your world is not about effort, it is about agreement. Agreement. Delay is often misunderstood as failure, yet it is nothing more than the natural interval between inner decision and outer expression. When the senses report silence, it does not mean nothing is happening. It means the movement has shifted to a level beyond immediate perception. The unseen is always active first. Every meaningful change begins where the eyes cannot see and the hands cannot touch. To mistake this quiet phase for denial is to misjudge the process entirely. The senses are limited reporters. They can only register what has already taken form, not what is currently forming. When you have made an inner shift, when you have accepted a new truth about yourself or your life, the outer world does not instantly mirror it. Reality must reorganize itself through countless unseen adjustments. People's attitudes change, circumstances reposition, and pathways open in ways that cannot be tracked linearly. This reorganization requires time, not because it is difficult, but because it is precise. Delay tests loyalty to the inner decision. It reveals whether belief is rooted in knowing or dependent on evidence. If you retreat the moment nothing appears, you withdraw the very agreement that allowed movement to begin. But when you remain inwardly steady during silence, you allow the unseen to complete its work. Patience in this sense is not passive waiting. It is active trust in a process already underway. Many abandon their inner position just before the shift becomes visible. They assume nothing is happening because nothing is seen. Yet the greatest transformations often occur in stillness. Just as roots grow in darkness before a tree appears above ground, reality arranges itself out of sight before revealing itself in form. The silence is not empty, it is full of motion. When you understand that delay is not denial, urgency dissolves. You stop checking for signs and stop measuring progress. This inner relaxation is not indifference, it is confidence. It signals alignment. From this state, you no longer interfere with the process by doubting, forcing, or overthinking. You allow life to deliver in its own way at the right moment. The unseen responds to consistency, not impatience. Each time you return to the assumption that it is done, you strengthen the pathway through which it will appear. Doubt may still arise, but it does not have to be believed. A thought does not undo a decision unless you give it authority. The silence breaks. What seemed delayed arrives naturally, often suddenly, and always clearly. When it does, you realize the waiting was never empty time. It was preparation. The unseen was moving all along, arranging, aligning, and perfecting. And the moment you see the result, you understand that denial never existed, only timing, purpose, and quiet movement beneath the surface. To keep going without questioning is not an act of blind hope, but an expression of deep inner trust. It is the decision to remain faithful to what you have accepted as true, even when the mind looks for reasons to doubt. Questioning often feels intelligent and cautious, yet it quietly weakens faith by dividing attention. Calm persistence, on the other hand, unifies the inner state. It allows the work that has already begun to reach its natural completion. Faith is not proven through emotional intensity or constant affirmation. It is revealed through steadiness. When you no longer feel the urge to analyze, explain, or repeatedly check for results, you are demonstrating faith in its purest form. This calm persistence signals certainty. It says, without words, that the outcome is settled. Life responds to this signal with precision because it reflects what is most consistently held within. Questioning interrupts alignment. Each time you ask whether it will happen, you momentarily step out of the state where it already has. This does not mean you must control every thought, but it does mean you choose where to return. Calm persistence is the practice of gently bringing yourself back to inner certainty whenever the mind wanders. There is no struggle in this return, only remembrance. Keeping going does not mean forcing action or maintaining constant focus. It means living your life from the assumption that the matter is resolved. You move forward without urgency. You make decisions without fear. You respond to situations from confidence rather than anticipation. This natural way of being is what allows faith to do its work without resistance. Many people stop just before completion, not because they lack belief, but because they grow tired of not seeing immediate proof. Yet, completion does not require effort from you, it requires permission. Calm persistence gives that permission by refusing to withdraw belief. It allows the unseen process to unfold without interference. There is power in not checking. There is strength in not demanding reassurance. When you remain inwardly settled, the need for external confirmation fades. This inner peace is not ignorance, it is alignment. It indicates that the inner and outer are already moving toward agreement. Faith completes the work because it removes opposition. When you stop questioning, you stop resisting. The path clears, timing aligns, and results appear naturally. Often they arrive when you are least concerned with them, because concern was never the creative force, faith was. To keep going without questioning is to trust the intelligence of life itself. You do not need to know how it will happen or when it will unfold. Your role is simpler and more powerful. Remain loyal to what you have decided within. When you do, the outcome cannot remain unfinished. Calm persistence carries it forward, and faith brings it home. In conclusion, the message is simple yet profound. Everything begins within. The victory is already decided. Persistence reveals reality. Belief precedes sight. Inner assumptions shape the world. Delay is never denial, and calm, unwavering faith completes the work. When you stop fighting appearances and remain loyal to your inner knowing, life naturally rearranges itself to confirm what you have accepted as true. You are not waiting for life to change. You are allowing it to catch up to who you have already become. Keep going without questioning. Remain steady in your inner certainty and trust the unseen movement that is always working in your favor. What you know inwardly. Thank you for listening. There is a secret power within you, one so profound that it shapes the world you walk through. This power is not found in effort, nor in struggle, nor in chasing. It is found in assumption. To act like you already won is to claim victory before the world can show it to you. When you live from the end, you are no longer begging, waiting, or hoping. You are being. You carry yourself with the quiet confidence of one who already possesses what they once longed for. And life, with all its seeming resistance, bends itself to match that inner certainty. The world around you may appear unchanged, the evidence may seem distant, but the senses are deceivers. What you hold within, that feeling of accomplishment, that conviction of success, is already more real than the ground beneath your feet. You do not wait for proof, you create proof by being it first. Imagine walking as though the victory were yours. How would you speak? How would you breathe? How would you meet each day? When you assume that state, the energy you radiate commands circumstances to align. It is not arrogance, it is faith, not pretense, but truth in seed form. You must dare to move as though nothing is missing, nothing is lacking, nothing is delayed, for in truth, all is already complete. Your task is only to accept it inwardly, to persist in the feeling of fulfillment until the outer world reflects it back to you. To act like you already won is to realize that winning was never in the future, it was always now. Imagination is the seed of reality. Everything you see around you, every building, invention, piece of art, or movement of society, began first as a thought, a vision, an unseen possibility held in the quiet space of the mind. The outer world is nothing more than the shadow cast by inner conviction. Before there was form, there was an image. Before there was proof, there was belief. And before there was reality, there was imagination. When you allow yourself to imagine, you are not playing with fantasies. You are touching the raw material of creation. The mind is the soil, and every thought, every feeling is a seed planted within it. What you choose to water with attention and belief takes root and eventually grows into visible experiences. To assume and feel something is true within is to give that seed life. The longer you hold it, the more real it becomes, until it cannot help but break through into the physical world. This is why doubt is so destructive. It uproots the seed before it can grow. When you question, when you waver, when you look for proof outside before cultivating conviction inside, you starve the soil of its power. But when you boldly declare something as already yours and nurture that feeling as if it were undeniable, you accelerate its unfolding. The world has no choice but to echo what you have assumed to be real. Consider how often you have lived out this principle unconsciously. You may have feared something deeply, held it in your imagination, and then watched as it manifested in your life. That was not chance. It was the seed you watered. In the same way, when you deliberately choose to assume the best, to imagine the outcome you desire, and to live from the feeling of its completion, you turn imagination into destiny. It is not about straining to make something happen. A seed does not struggle to grow. It only requires the right environment. In the same way, your imagination does not need constant effort, only persistence and faith. Feel it real, as though it were already so, and you provide the nourishment for that inner picture to blossom. The circumstances, people, and opportunities required will be drawn into place. Not because you chased them, but because your inner world commanded their appearance. The truth is that imagination is not a passive daydream. It is creation itself, working quietly, invisibly, faithfully. You are never imagining in vain. Every image you hold with feeling shapes tomorrow's reality. To dismiss imagination as just fantasy is to overlook the engine of all existence. What you feel within is always moving toward expression without. Therefore, guard your inner world with care. Plant only the seeds you wish to see bloom. Nourish them with persistence. Protect them from doubt, and allow yourself to feel the joy of their fulfillment even before it is visible. The invisible is more real than the visible, for it is the cause. Your imagination is not a weakness or a toy. It is the birthplace of every reality you will ever walk through. To live from the end is to step into the reality of your desire as though it were already complete. It is not about waiting for proof, nor is it about wishing or hoping for some future event to occur. It is about inhabiting the state of the fulfilled wish now, with such conviction that the world cannot help but rearrange itself to reflect your inner certainty. When you live from the end, you are not striving for an outcome. You are embodying it. You breathe it, feel it, and carry yourself in alignment with the truth that it is already yours. Think about how a person behaves once they have already achieved what they once longed for. Their tone changes. their posture shifts. Their eyes carry a quiet calm, a confidence that no struggle can shake. There is no desperation, no frantic chasing, no fear of loss. There is only assurance. To live from the end is to borrow that assurance now, before the outer world acknowledges it. It is to walk with the victory in your step, even while the scoreboard of life still seems undecided. The power of this practice lies in emotion. Words and thoughts alone are not enough if they are not clothed in feeling. You may tell yourself, I am successful, I am loved, I am abundant, but if inside you still feel lack, fear, or separation, the seed cannot grow. Living from the end means summoning the emotions that belong to your fulfilled desire. If you long for love, feel the warmth of being cherished now. If you seek abundance, feel the security of freedom now. If you desire success, breathe in the confidence of accomplishment now. These feelings are not make-believe. They are the magnetic force that shapes your reality. This is not pretense, nor is it self-deception. It is the recognition that the outer world is always a mirror of your inner state. By embodying the end within, you establish a new cause that the external must eventually reflect. The law is simple. Life responds to who you are being, not to what you are wanting. When you persist in being the person who already possesses the desire, the world bends to accommodate that identity. At first, it may feel unnatural. You may hear the voice of doubt whispering, but it is not here yet. Look at your circumstances. Look at the evidence. That is the trap of living from appearances rather than truth. To live from the end is to defy appearances, to remain faithful to the unseen, and to carry yourself with the dignity of one who already has. The more you persist, the more natural it becomes, until it feels impossible to think otherwise. When you practice this daily, your actions begin to align without effort. You make decisions as one who has already won. You walk through challenges with calm certainty because you know the outcome is secure. You no longer seek validation from outside because the victory is already established inside. And then, as if by inevitability, the outer world shifts to catch up with the inner. To live from the end is to live in truth. It is to acknowledge that creation is finished, that every possibility already exists, and that your role is only to embody the one you choose. By claiming it now, by feeling it real, you draw it from the unseen into the seen. This is the essence of mastery, to live today as if the promise were already fulfilled and to watch tomorrow reveal it in form. Assumption is the invisible hand that shapes the course of your life. Doubt is the shadow that seeks to cancel it. Both live within you, but only one can rule at a time. To live by assumption is to declare with certainty that what you inwardly accept as true must come to pass. To live in doubt is to feed uncertainty, hesitation, and fear until they build a wall around you. The difference between those who rise and those who remain stuck lies not in talent, resources, or circumstances, but in what they dare to assume about themselves and their world. The world does not respond to your fears unless you give them authority. Fear is powerless without your belief. The moment you assume fear to be real, the moment you give it weight, it begins to shape events in your life. Many people live as though their worries are prophecies, rehearsing in imagination the very outcomes they dread. And so those fears, nurtured in thought and feeling, grow into form. What they do not realize is that the same power that gives fear its strength is the power that can turn assumption into triumph. Assumption requires courage, for it demands that you cling to conviction even when every outer sense denies it. It is easier to doubt because doubt asks nothing of you except surrender to appearances. But assumption is bold. It says, I decide the outcome, not circumstance. It says, what I inwardly claim as true will become true no matter what the world shows me now. This is not stubbornness, it is faith in action. The outer world is nothing more than a delayed reflection of the inner. If you persist in assumption, the reflection must change. Think of how you carry yourself when you assume success. Your words have authority, your posture conveys certainty, and your decisions spring from clarity. Contrast that with the hesitancy of doubt, second-guessing, shrinking, holding back. These two states create two very different worlds. When you assume, life bends to meet you at that level of conviction. When you doubt, life mirrors your uncertainty. The key is persistence. An assumption entertained for a moment may flicker out, but one held consistently becomes unshakable. It takes root, deepens into feeling, and soon feels more real than any contradiction. Doubt may still knock at the door, whispering, what if it doesn't work? What if you fail? But you must refuse it entry. You answer doubt not with struggle, but with a calm return to your chosen assumption. Again and again, you bring your focus back until doubt loses its voice. The world is not as solid and fixed as it appears. It is pliable, obedient, responsive to the convictions you impress upon it. You need not chase results nor fight against obstacles. Simply assume with certainty that what you desire is already secured. Live as though it were unquestionable. Let that conviction saturate your words, your emotions, your imagination. When you do, the world has no choice but to echo your assumption, because reality always bends to the strength of your inner certainty. Silencing the senses is one of the greatest disciplines of creation, for the outer world often presents a picture that stands in complete contradiction to the vision you hold within. The eyes may see lack, the ears may hear rejection, the body may feel limitation, yet none of these appearances hold true power. They are temporary shadows, shifting reflections of states you once entertained. If you allow them to dictate your belief, you will remain trapped by circumstance. But if you learn to silence the testimony of the senses and persist in the inner knowing of your fulfilled desire, the outer must eventually bow to your persistence. The senses are useful servants, but terrible masters. They report only what is, not what can be. They echo the past, not the promise. When you measure your possibility by what the senses reveal, you limit yourself to repetition of what has already been. But when you withdraw attention from appearances and turn inward to the unseen, you step into the creative act. For all change begins invisibly, in silence, before the world takes shape. This is why stillness is so powerful. To quiet the noise of doubt, fear, and contradiction is to enter the sanctuary where imagination rules. In that stillness, you no longer consult the evidence of your circumstances. You consult only the truth you choose to accept within. Perhaps the world tells you, you are not enough, it cannot be done, the door is closed. Yet in silence, you dare to imagine the opposite. You see yourself accomplished, fulfilled, victorious. You feel the joy of completion as though it were already present. And in that inner certainty, you plant the seed that will overturn every outer appearance. It is not always easy. The senses scream loudly when circumstances seem impossible. They tempt you to give up, to agree with their verdict. But persistence is stronger than appearances. Each time you return to the vision, each time you reaffirm the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you weaken the hold of outer contradiction. The senses may shout today, but if you refuse to bow, their voice will fade, and the inner truth will take command. Think of a gardener who plants a seed. The soil shows nothing at first. To the senses, it appears empty. If the gardener judged by appearances, he would dig it up and call it hopeless. But the wise gardener knows growth is unseen before it is seen. He persists in watering, believing in the invisible process beneath the soil. In the same way, your desire is already growing beneath the surface of the unseen. To silence the senses is to water it faithfully, without demanding instant proof. In time, appearances will change, because they must. They are not fixed, but fluid. They are obedient to the state you occupy within. When you silence the senses and hold to the inner vision, you command the unseen to arrange itself into form. The contradiction dissolves, the outer aligns, and what once seemed impossible stands before you as inevitable. This is the power of inner knowing. It does not ask permission from appearances, it overrides them. Your state is the magnet that draws everything into your life. It is not your scattered wishes nor your desperate wants that shape reality. It is the state you consistently embody. You may long for success, whisper affirmations of wealth, or plead for love, but if inwardly you remain in a state of lack, insecurity, or fear, you will only attract experiences that echo that inner condition. The world does not deliver to you what you desire, it mirrors who you are being. A state is more than a passing thought. It is the atmosphere of your being, the emotional and mental climate in which you live. When you wake in the morning, you step into a state. When you walk through your day, you carry it with you like an aura. Others feel it, opportunities align to it, and events arrange themselves in obedience to it. If your state is one of confidence, the world reflects opportunities to match it. If your state is one of doubt, you will find endless confirmations for your uncertainty. The state itself is the magnet, pulling to you the experiences that correspond to its frequency. This truth is often misunderstood. People assume they can force life to give them what they want while remaining the same within. But desire without transformation is powerless. You cannot expect abundance while persisting in the state of lack. You cannot demand love while dwelling in the state of loneliness. The law is unchanging. You attract not what you ask for, but what you embody. If you wish to change your life, you must first change your state. How do you do this? By assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled now. If you long for wealth, ask yourself, what would it feel like to already have it? Not someday, not eventually, but now. Let that feeling saturate you until it becomes natural. Walk, speak, and think from that place. The state will draw to itself the opportunities, connections, and conditions that match it. In the same way, if you seek love, you must first embody the state of being loved. Feel cherished, feel chosen, feel secure. As you persist in this state, the magnet begins its silent work, and the outer world rearranges to reflect what you are being. The power of this law is that it bypasses effort and struggle. You do not need to chase or force. You only need to occupy the state, and the rest follows with certainty. Just as a magnet does not strain to attract iron, but does so effortlessly by its very nature, your state pulls life into alignment without struggle. The challenge is not to make things happen, but to remain faithful to the state you choose to embody. Every moment is an invitation to shift. You are never trapped, for states are fluid. You can rise from one to another by the simple act of assumption. Dare to leave behind the state of lack and put on the state of fulfillment. The world will not resist you, it will mirror you. For in truth, you are not waiting for change. You are the change. Your state is the magnet, and the life you live is nothing more than its reflection. Victory does not lie somewhere in the distant future, waiting for you to earn it through endless struggle. Victory exists now. It is already written, already accomplished in the unseen, and your task is not to chase it, but to claim it. The moment you act, speak, and think as if the result were already secured, you align yourself with the reality of triumph, and the world cannot help but echo your certainty. Life is not about becoming victorious. It is about awakening to the truth that victory was yours from the beginning. Think of how a champion carries themselves after winning. There is no desperation in their voice, no doubt in their posture. Their words carry calm assurance. Their presence radiates confidence. Now imagine embodying that same spirit before the evidence appears. That is the essence of living in victory. You are no longer waiting for proof, you are proof. You no longer plead for success. You move as though success has already unfolded. This is not pretense, but recognition of the deeper truth. Creation is finished, and the outcome you desire already exists. When you live in this state, everything about you changes. Your thoughts are no longer consumed with what if I fail, but with how does one who has succeeded think, feel, and act. Your words shift from doubt to declaration. You stop rehearsing fear and begin rehearsing fulfillment. Even your actions carry a quiet authority because they are not driven by need but by completeness. You are no longer striving for victory, you are expressing it. Of course, appearances may try to convince you otherwise. The senses may insist that nothing has changed, that the victory is far off, that obstacles remain. But these are echoes of the old state, not the truth of your being. To persist in victory is to deny appearances the power to dictate your belief. You see beyond them, standing firm in the inner knowing that the result is already secured. This persistence is what causes the outer to yield. It cannot resist the force of one who lives as though the end is already accomplished. Victory is not a destination, it is a state. The more you occupy it, the more natural it becomes. At first, it may feel like pretending, like putting on a costume that doesn't quite fit. But as you persist, the costume becomes your skin, and soon you cannot imagine being anything else. That is when the shift occurs. The world, sensing the vibration of your certainty, bends itself to mirror it. Opportunities open, people respond, doors unlock, not because you forced them, but because you dared to live from victory rather than chase it. To act, speak, and think as if the result is already secured is the highest form of faith. It is declaring that you trust the unseen more than the seen, the promise more than the problem. And when you live in that state, life has no choice but to reveal your victory in visible form. For the truth is this, you do not become victorious, you already are. The only task is to claim it now, to live as though it is done, and to watch the world confirm what you have already accepted within. The truth is simple yet profound. Everything begins within you. Imagination plants the seed, assumption waters it, persistence protects it, and your state brings it into form. When you dare to live from the end, silence the contradictions of the senses, and hold unwaveringly to your inner knowing, life has no choice but to reflect your certainty. Victory is not tomorrow, it is now. The moment you accept it, embody it, and live as though it were already yours, you step into the reality of triumph. So carry yourself as one who has already won. Walk with the quiet confidence of fulfillment, speak with the tone of completion, and think with the clarity of certainty. Do not wait for proof. Do not beg for signs. Live it now, for what you claim inwardly must unfold outwardly. The world bends to your conviction, and all you truly desire is already secure. Thank you for listening, and thank you for choosing to awaken the power within you. If this message resonated with you, share it, live it, and remember always, act like you already won. The win is done, not tomorrow, not someday. It is finished now. What you are waiting for has already been decided, not in the outer world, but in the inner one. And the inner world is the only place where anything is ever truly created. The moment you accepted the idea of victory as natural, the moment you felt it as real, the moment you stopped asking if and began knowing that the win was sealed. Life does not struggle to give you what you are, it simply reflects it. You are not here to make things happen. You are here to allow what is already yours to arrive. The outer world must follow the inner command. It has no choice. It moves slowly sometimes, not because it resists you, but because it must reorganize itself to match what you have already claimed within. Do not mistake delay for denial. Do not mistake silence for absence. A seed planted does not shout as it grows, yet growth is inevitable. When you assume the feeling of victory, you are no longer hoping, you are being, and being is the highest form of power. The world rearranges itself around identity, not effort. When you live as the one who has already won, circumstances quietly shift to confirm it. Stop checking for proof. Proof follows assumption, it never precedes it. The moment you say within yourself, "This is done," something profound happens. The mind relaxes, the body softens, the chase ends, and in that stillness, reality begins to move. You do not need to force outcomes. You do not need to convince anyone. You do not need to fight the current of life. You simply need to remain faithful to the state you have chosen. Feel the relief of success. Feel the calm of completion. Feel the quiet confidence of someone who knows, because knowing is creation finished. Every time doubt appears, return to this truth. If it feels natural to you inside, it must become visible outside. That is law, not belief. Law. The win is not coming. It is entering. It enters through conversations you did not plan, through opportunities that appear ordinary, through doors that open without struggle. And when it arrives, it will feel familiar, because you have already lived it within. Remain where you are inwardly victorious. Remain loyal to the feeling of fulfillment. Remain still knowing the work is complete. The win is done, and life is now catching up. Before anything appears in the outer world, it is already complete within consciousness. What you eventually see with your eyes is only the echo of a decision that was made long before you noticed it. Victory is not something you create through effort or struggle, it is something you awaken to through awareness. The moment you accept an outcome as true inwardly, the win is already finished. What follows is not creation, but revelation. Consciousness is the source from which all experiences flow. Every event, every circumstance, every visible result begins as an inner assumption. When you assume victory as real, when it feels natural and unquestioned inside you, life has no alternative but to express it. The outer world is not independent, it is obedient. It does not initiate, it responds. This is why waiting for physical proof before claiming success only delays its appearance. You are asking the mirror to smile first. The reason many people struggle is not because they lack ability, opportunity, or effort, but because they are trying to win in the world before they have won in themselves. They fight conditions, chase validation, and attempt to control outcomes, unaware that the true victory is an inner agreement. Once consciousness is settled, once there is inner knowing instead of hoping, the outcome is already secured. From that point onward, time becomes nothing more than a bridge leading to a predetermined end. Seeing is not believing, believing is seeing. The world you observe is always a reflection of what you have accepted as true within. When victory exists in consciousness, doubt has no foundation. Doubt only appears when you are trying to claim something that does not yet feel natural to you. But when the feeling of fulfillment becomes familiar, the mind stops questioning. There is a calm certainty, a quiet confidence that does not need reassurance. This is the state in which outcomes are sealed. Even when nothing seems to be happening externally, the process is still unfolding. Life rearranges itself subtly, invisibly, bringing together the people, events, and circumstances required to match your inner state. Just as roots grow before the plant breaks the surface, victory organizes itself before it becomes visible. Impatience only arises when you forget that the win is already complete. If it were not finished, you would still be striving instead of knowing. To understand this is to release struggle. You stop forcing results and start allowing them. You stop asking when and start living as if it is done. This inner shift is powerful because it changes who you are being, and the world responds not to what you want, but to who you are. When you live from the awareness of victory, you naturally think, speak, and act in ways that align with it. Without effort, the greatest freedom comes from realizing that nothing in the outer world has the authority to decide your success. That decision is made within. Once it is made, it cannot be undone by appearances, delays, or contradictions. The win exists before you see it because consciousness precedes form. What you see is only the final act of a story that was already written inside you. Your inner assumption is the final authority over your experience, whether you are aware of it or not. What you consistently accept as true within yourself becomes the rule by which your life operates. The world does not argue with your assumptions, it obeys them. It does not ask whether they are logical, fair, or deserved. It simply mirrors them. This is why circumstances repeat, patterns persist, and outcomes seem predictable, because the inner decision has already been made. An assumption is not a wish or a fleeting thought, it is a settled feeling, an inner agreement about how life works and who you are within it. When something feels natural to you, when it no longer feels surprising or questionable, you have accepted it as true. From that moment on, life begins arranging itself to confirm it. You may not consciously choose many of your assumptions, but they are always active, silently shaping your reality. People often attempt to change results without changing the assumptions that produced them. They try harder, plan better, or wait for luck, while internally holding the same beliefs about limitation, struggle, or delay. The effort is exhausting because it fights against the very authority that governs experience. The outer world cannot permanently contradict what you inwardly accept. At best, it can temporarily distract you, but it must return to alignment. What you accept as true does not need constant affirmation. In fact, the need to repeat something over and over is often a sign that it has not yet become an assumption. True assumptions feel obvious. They carry a sense of calm certainty. When you assume success, you are not trying to convince yourself. You simply know. And knowing is the command that life responds to. This is why inner conversations are so powerful. The way you speak to yourself, the conclusions you silently draw, and the expectations you carry into situations all reveal your assumptions. If you expect rejection, confusion, or delay, life faithfully delivers experiences to match, not as punishment, but as obedience. Reality has no agenda of its own. It follows the script you have accepted. Changing your life then does not begin with changing circumstances, but with revising what you allow to feel true. The moment you withdraw acceptance from an old assumption and replace it with a new one, the authority shifts. At first, the outer world may still reflect the past decision, but this is only momentum, not permanence. Persistence in the new assumption eventually dissolves the old reflection. You do not need to fight doubt, you simply need to stop giving it authority. Doubt only has power when it is accepted as truth. When you recognize that your inner assumption is the law, you no longer fear appearances. You understand that what you see now is not a verdict, but a lagging indicator of a previous belief. The most important question you can ever ask yourself is not what you want, but what you are accepting as true. Because life will never rise above that level. The moment you assume differently, the moment the new truth feels natural within you, the outcome is decided. What you accept as true must appear, because there is nothing in the outer world with greater authority than your inner assumption. Feeling is the doorway through which every experience enters your life. Thoughts may introduce ideas, and words may describe intentions, but it is emotion that gives them substance. What you feel to be true is what becomes real. Feeling is not decoration added to desire, it is the evidence that the desire has already been accepted by consciousness. When emotion is present, the outcome is sealed. A thought without feeling remains abstract. It floats in the mind without roots. But when a thought is accompanied by emotion, especially the quiet, natural feeling of fulfillment, it becomes embodied. Feeling is the moment an idea stops being imagined and starts being lived. This is why fleeting affirmations rarely change anything, while a single moment of deep inner knowing can alter the course of a life. Emotion impresses the subconscious, and the subconscious governs behavior, perception, and reaction. You do not act based on what you say you believe. You act based on what you feel is true. Your choices, habits, and responses flow naturally from your emotional state. When you feel successful, you move through the world differently. You speak differently. You notice different opportunities. And the world responds accordingly. This is why effort alone is powerless without feeling. You can work endlessly toward a goal while inwardly feeling doubtful, unworthy, or anxious, and those feelings quietly cancel the action. Life responds to the dominant emotional tone, not the visible struggle. Emotion is the signal sent out continuously, announcing what you accept as real. Feeling also explains why visualization works only when it feels natural. It is not the image that creates, but the emotion experienced while imagining. When you feel the relief of completion, the joy of achievement, or the calm of certainty, you are stepping into the state of having. That emotional state becomes your identity, and identity is what reality reflects. The most powerful feelings are not intense or dramatic, they are subtle and steady. The calm confidence of knowing, the quiet satisfaction of fulfillment. These emotions indicate that the desire is no longer something you are reaching for, but something you are living from. When this happens, resistance dissolves. There is nothing left to force, because the mind is no longer divided. D. Negative emotion is not an enemy, it is feedback. It shows you what you are still accepting as true. If fear appears, it is not a sign of failure, but a sign that the old assumption is still active. Instead of fighting the feeling, you gently replace it by entering the feeling of the outcome fulfilled. The moment you do, authority shifts. Reality must conform to feeling, because feeling is the language of consciousness. Words may lie, but emotion never does. The world hears what you feel, not what you say. When you consistently feel as though something is already yours, life aligns to make that feeling logical. Emotion seals the outcome because it completes the inner act. Once the feeling of fulfillment is accepted, creation is finished. Everything that follows is simply reality catching up to what you have already lived inwardly. Time is often misunderstood as the force that creates outcomes, when in truth it is only the medium through which outcomes unfold. Time does not decide what will happen, it simply reveals what has already been set in motion within consciousness. When fulfillment feels delayed, it is not because the desire is uncertain, but because time is serving as the bridge between the inner decision and its visible expression. Delay does not deny fulfillment. It confirms that something is unfolding. The moment an outcome is accepted inwardly, the end is fixed. From that point on, time has only one role: to arrange the sequence of events that make the fulfillment appear natural and believable. Life moves with precision, aligning circumstances, people, and opportunities in ways the conscious mind could never plan. What appears as waiting is actually orchestration. Impatience arises when we forget this. We begin to measure progress by external signs, assuming that if nothing has changed yet, nothing is happening. But creation does not begin on the face. It begins invisibly. Just as a journey requires distance to be crossed, fulfillment requires a span of moments through which it can arrive. Time is not resistance, it is process. If time were the creator, then effort and waiting would determine outcomes. But experience shows otherwise. Some things arrive quickly with no struggle, while others unfold slowly despite effort. The difference lies not in time itself, but in the level of inner acceptance. When fulfillment feels natural, time collapses. When doubt remains, the bridge lengthens, not as punishment, but as adjustment. Delay often serves a purpose that the surface mind cannot see. It allows assumptions to stabilize. It allows identity to shift. It allows you to become the person who can naturally receive what you have claimed. If fulfillment appeared instantly without inner alignment, it would feel foreign, unstable, or easily lost. Time ensures harmony between inner state and outer experience. This is why giving up during delay is the only true failure. To abandon the inner knowing is to step off the bridge before reaching the other side. But persistence in assumption guarantees arrival. The bridge cannot collapse if you continue walking. Life has no mechanism to permanently withhold what consciousness has accepted as true. Understanding time correctly brings peace. You stop asking when and start resting in certainty. You no longer interpret delay as rejection, but as movement. Every day becomes part of the unfolding, even when nothing dramatic happens. Ordinary moments carry unseen progress. When you remain faithful to fulfillment during delay, something shifts within you. Anxiety fades. Effort relaxes. You live more fully in the present, no longer treating life as a waiting room. This inner ease often shortens the bridge, because resistance dissolves. Time is not your enemy, it is your pathway. It has no power to cancel what is already decided within you. Once the end is assumed, time must lead you there. Delay does not deny fulfillment, it simply marks the distance between the inner act and the outer confirmation. Chasing implies that what you desire is separate from you, distant, or unwilling to come. Allowing begins with the understanding that what you seek is already aligned with you the moment it is accepted inwardly. Effort belongs to a state of not having, while acceptance belongs to a state of being. When you chase, you affirm absence. When you allow, you affirm fulfillment. Most struggle is not caused by desire itself, but by the belief that effort creates results. This belief keeps people in constant motion, always trying to prove worth, earn outcomes, or force circumstances. Yet effort without inner acceptance only reinforces the idea that something is missing. The more you push, the more you confirm to yourself that you are still waiting. Allowing is not passivity, it is a shift of authority. Instead of attempting to control the outer world, you establish inner agreement. Once the inner state is settled, action becomes natural rather than strained. You do what feels right, not what feels desperate. The difference is subtle but powerful. One comes from trust, the other from fear. When you accept something as already yours, your nervous system relaxes, the urgency dissolves. You no longer measure every moment for signs of progress. This relaxation is not laziness, it is alignment. In this state, intuition sharpens. You notice opportunities you previously overlooked. Conversations flow differently. Decisions feel lighter. Life begins to cooperate because you are no longer resisting it with effort. Chasing also creates attachment to specific paths. You decide how something must happen and when it must arrive. Allowing releases this rigidity. You true that the outcome can come through channels you did not plan. Often the easiest route is the one the mind would never choose. When you stop forcing, life reveals simpler ways. Effort has its place, but only after acceptance. Action that flows from inner certainty feels almost effortless, even when it requires energy. It does not drain you because it is not fueled by anxiety. It feels like movement, not struggle. This is how aligned action differs from chasing. One feels heavy, the other feels inevitable. Allowing also means letting go of constant correction. You stop monitoring your thoughts in fear, stop fighting every doubt, and stop trying to maintain perfection. Instead, you return gently to the feeling of having. This softness is not weakness, it is stability. The outcome does not require your vigilance, it requires your permission. The paradox is that when you stop chasing, things often arrive faster. This is not coincidence. Chasing creates resistance by emphasizing lack. Allowing removes that resistance by confirming wholeness. Life responds to ease because ease signals readiness. You do not need to convince life to give you anything. Life responds automatically to your state of being. When acceptance replaces effort, you step out of the race and into alignment. You are no longer running toward fulfillment. You are standing in it, letting it come to you. To live from the end is to shift your identity from one who seeks to one who already possesses. Most people move through life oriented toward outcomes, always approaching fulfillment as something ahead of them. This orientation keeps desire alive, but fulfillment distant. Living from the end reverses this movement. Instead of walking toward a future result, you stand in the state of completion and allow life to align around you. Becoming the person who already has it does not mean pretending or denying peace, resent circumstances. It means choosing an inner position that is independent of appearances. Identity is the source of experience. What you consistently identify as being true about yourself becomes the lens through which you perceive, decide, and act. When your identity changes, your world follows. The person who already has what they desire thinks differently, not through forced positivity, but through natural expectation. They do not constantly wonder if it will happen, because for them it already has. Their thoughts are calm, grounded, and unhurried. Their decisions are guided by confidence rather than urgency. This shift in inner posture is subtle, yet it changes everything. Living from the end also alters how you relate to challenges. Obstacles no longer feel threatening, They feel temporary and impersonal. You do not interpret setbacks as signs of failure, but as part of the unfolding. This emotional stability comes from knowing the end is secure. When the destination is certain, the road loses its power to disturb you. This state is not maintained through constant effort. It is sustained through familiarity. You return again and again to the feeling of already being fulfilled until it becomes normal. Normality is what manifests. What feels natural must express itself. When success feels like home rather than a destination, life reorganizes to match that feeling. Becoming the person who already has it also changes your relationship with time. You stop waiting for life to begin. You stop postponing joy, peace, or confidence until conditions improve. You allow yourself to experience these qualities now, knowing they are expressions of the end state. This present enjoyment is not premature, it is preparatory. It signals readiness. You will still take action, but it will be different. Actions taken from the end feel intuitive and well timed. You are not acting to get something, you are acting because it feels appropriate to who you are now. There is less second guessing and more flow. Even effort feels lighter because it is not loaded with expectation. Living from the end requires trust in inner causation. You trust that being precedes having, and that inner alignment leads outer expression. This trust frees you from constant analysis. You no longer ask, "Am I doing enough?" because the question itself belongs to a former identity. When you become the person who already has it, you stop managing reality and start allowing it to confirm you. The world responds to who you are being, not what you are chasing. Live from the end, and the end will live itself through you. Everything you have heard comes down to one simple truth. Creation is finished inwardly before it ever appears outwardly. Victory exists in consciousness before it becomes visible. Your inner assumption holds authority. Your feeling seals the outcome. Time merely delivers what has already been decided. Effort dissolves into acceptance, and living from the end transforms who you are being. When these principles are understood and lived, struggle loses its purpose. You stop chasing life and begin allowing it to reflect your inner state. The moment you choose fulfillment within, the work is done. From there, life has only one role: to align itself with the version of you who already knows, already trusts, and already has. Remain faithful to that inner position. Let certainty replace effort, calm replace urgency, and knowing replace doubt. What feels natural within you must appear around you. The win is done, and reality is simply catching up. Thank you.